Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to move into session number 2. We're really excited about this topic and this panel that we've put together. It's growing adoption of eNotes in the industry. At this point in time, we're going to learn about what exactly an eNote is and how it's being utilized in the electronic mortgage closing process. And we're very pleased to have this stellar panel consisting of Liz Barnacle. She's the national sales manager for MERS Corp Holding. And to round out the panel, we have Alex Teep, who's a senior product manager of eOriginal. And again, this is going to be quite an exciting panel, and we are so very pleased to have them with us today. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Liz and Alex Teep.
Thank you so much, Ozzy. Thank you to the North Carolina eClosing Advisory Board for having MERS back to the second annual Electronic Mortgage Closing Conference. eNotes are taking flight in North Carolina, in large part due to the efforts of this advisory board and certainly to the Secretary of State, Elaine Marshall, for her leadership in the great state of North Carolina. Congratulations to you, Ozzy, on a tremendous 2020, certainly in tumultuous times. We are all so pleased to see the recognition you received this year. And Ken Sykes, thank you for always wanting to know more and always inviting the conversation to talk about eNotes and eClosings with a keen concern for your borrower. I'm Liz Barnacle, and I'm honored to serve as the National Sales Manager for the customer group. I work very closely with my colleagues, Lorinda Clemente out of the Northeast, Bob Pathman out of the Western region, and the one you know so well, Ron Crow out of the Southern region. As a quick mention, in 2020, MERS is now part of the ICE mortgage technology this year with the acquisition of Ellie Mae. As a team, we manage over 5,000 members throughout the mortgage industry that include originators, servicers, sub-servicers, warehouse line, and custodians. There are 2 MERS platforms to be aware of, MERS Residential and MERS Registry. What I'm going to focus on today is the MERS Registry, the system of record for an electronic note, a system that identifies the rights holder of that digital note. As members involve their business, we provide guidance and education regarding e-mortgage implementation and specifically the MERS Registry, how to come on board and how to integrate onto the system. As I look over to slide 2, for this session, just like Ken Sykes asked me to, I'm going to review 3 components. We're going to take a look at the fast-growing numbers, focusing on the number of eNotes registered and the growth that we see at MERS. We can't help but see the industry adoption and the quick look into eRegistry and the addendum submitted in 2020, the accelerated onboarding that we saw with our members, and member preparedness for MERS integration was a large part of what we did in 2020. Last, we'll take a look at the new players, opening up the market, providing much needed liquidity in 2020, allowing for additional loan products and originators to come to the table who want to execute an e-closing for their borrowers. So as we move to slide 3, I'll start here with illustrating those fast growing numbers. Let's take a look at eNote data year-over-year growth. This chart tracks the last 3 years, 2018, 2019, and 2020. It's easy to see here that MERS is on track for the 3rd year of triple-digit year-over-year growth. I love saying that. And the follow-up to that is we also have double-digit month-over-month growth in eNote registrations. I hope that qualifies for some fast-growing numbers. And if you want to look a little closer, I'll give you those numbers by year. One that's not listed here is the 2017 numbers. There were 2,311 registrations total for the year of 2017. As we stepped into 2018 and grew a bit more, there were 17,047 eNotes as we ended the year. In 2019, we saw some incredible growth again with total numbers at 127,170 eNotes registered on the MERS Registry. Year to date, which you can see here in the darker bands on this chart, we're at 352,978 eNotes with 2 months remaining. That is certainly something that we work very hard on here, and I'm just pleased to be able to share that with the advisory board. We do see the increased growth year over year, month over month, and believe this trend is going to continue. To quickly recap the other points that you see here on your slide, the single day eNote registration record was on October 19th, and they just continue to break those records each time we look at the month's numbers. 3,437 were registered on October 19th, and I bet as the time this presentation is aired, we might have another record. 9 out of 10 months in 2020, we set records again. You saw a bit of a dip here in April, and you see that rebound in May. I think that's certainly the reaction to the pandemic and how originators were trying to respond. The final number I'll leave you with is October's final number, which is 66,575 eNotes, a 29% increase in month-over-month growth from September. I'll talk about the spike in interest in the new market players as we switch over to the next slide. This is where I want to talk to you a little bit about industry adoption and where we see our members coming on board and how they're being successful. If you look here at this first number, we have 130 plus companies that are live on the MERSI registry. This is really exciting, and this is certainly the work that the customer group has been working on very closely with our integration team and our partners like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae, and some of those other players we'll talk about here in a moment. Drawing your attention to the middle of the slide, there's 100 plus org IDs submitted to MERSI registry addendum, March through October of 2020. Not much to talk about in January and February as far as numbers. But from that alone is a 245% increase year over year of those who are wanting to board onto the MERSI registry. That's incredible. We've really experienced that this year. We certainly did see a sharp spike in addendums submitted in the months of April and May. We continue to see those numbers submit. And we look through how not only do they want to come on board, but how we integrate them. The customer group works with each of those members that are entering our integration pipeline. Our goal is to prepare our members in order to increase their speed to market once integration is complete. We prepare them with 3 critical elements. We review their processes and procedures with them internally, their tech platforms, especially the eVault. I believe Alex Teep is going to speak after this presentation, maybe before, but that eVault is a critical part to the eNote. And the last thing we really prepare our members for is to think through their trading partners, their contracts, their testing, their execution is an important part of being ready to come on to the MERSI registry system. I'll share a resource slide at the end of this presentation that includes that checklist. In part, due to our preparation and to the pandemic, but mostly to our members' hard work, we saw a significant improvement in the integration timeframe in 2020. Typically, the integration timeframe is about 45 to 60 days. This still holds true as a good expectation. However, there were many members that were completing integration in 30 days, and I hope some of them are seeing this now. We saw some members integrate as quickly as 2 weeks. This is all dependent on the preparedness of the member to execute the eNotes with their tech and their trading partners. The last mention I'll make on this slide is a 120% increase in 2020 on transacting companies. I'm so pleased to tell the advisory board that we saw the diversification of registering members this year. There are still those dominant players that are executing their eNote models. However, diversification is increasing each month with each active member that's coming on board. It does take a little bit of time to roll out eNotes. Once you're activated on the MERSI registry, we typically see a significant increase in those eNote registrations in months 3 through 6 for those new additions who are coming on to execute that eClose model. As we walk away from this slide, let's take a look at the companies that are integrated with the MERSI registry as of October 31st, 2020. What we see here are the active participants. This is those 130 players I was just talking about. For North Carolina originators, we see newcomers Truliant Federal Credit Union and a seasoned eReg member, North State Bank Mortgage. There are originators with a national footprint that originate in North Carolina as well. And approximately the last 2 years or so, there have been about 10,000 eNotes that were produced on North Carolina properties. Also of great importance on this slide are other market segments. We have 19 warehouse lenders and some that are coming on month to month. Our servicing agent, we have 19 servicers and 6 sub-servicers. And I'll stop here because I think it's very important to note, to accommodate multiple business models, in 2020, MERS released a platform update specifically for servicers and sub-servicers. The cornerstone of the 17.0 release is an additional rights holder field, the one for a master servicer and the second developed for the sub-servicer. These two fields will enhance the agility of servers to be able to handle that eNote asset, certainly as their business models flow. Lastly, we have 16 investors. And for me, I think that's just incredible. We're going to take a look in the next slide at the 5 pillars of liquidity we were looking at in 2020 and that movement there. But the aggregators are certainly come on board. And that is just very exciting for us to see. And of course, we also have the custodians who are also holding those eNote assets on behalf of our members as well. These 5 pillars of liquidity really speak to our members' ability, our originators, to be able to access the liquidity they need to generate an eNote for their members. And Ginnie Mae, of course, announced their launch of their digital collateral program this year, July 16th. So we're very excited, if I might say, congratulations to Angel Hernandez and his team for working their tails off to get this up and running this year. We do have some resources that we can share with you. I'll have some on some slides at the end of this at the end of this presentation. But it's very exciting to say that seller servicers and the Ginnie Mae pilot are underway. The second one that I'd like to point out to you on this slide is the federal home loan banks. There are 3 federal home loan banks that are now accepting eNotes. We have Des Moines that announced July 1st, Dallas right behind them on July 16th, and third, Chicago, August 3rd. The other 8 are right behind these first 3 and working diligently on careful planning and execution. We expect to see the majority of the federal home loan banks on board by the middle of 2021. We know how critical the federal home loan bank system is to providing liquidity to the market, and we're just so thankful for the chance to work with their teams and to help them get live on the MERS registry. The last one I really want to point out here are the private investors and the aggregators, and I mentioned that on the investor screen on the previous slide. We have groups like Chase, Texas Capital Bank, Wells Fargo, Plaza, and PennyMac, and among others that are promoting that correspondent e-delivery. It's certainly a fissure in the market that allows for the liquidity for those mortgage originators to be able to not have an agency takeout, but also that aggregator model as well. What's also been exciting is the rating agencies have made publication in 2020. This is really big for those private securitizations. I'll have some resources for you on the next slide and where we can look at the articles that were published, not only by the rating agencies, but also following the FHFA on the agency market. Certainly publishing those articles in favor of eNotes, that it's enhancement for the borrower experience. So in terms of fast growing numbers in the industry adoption and those members coming onto the MERS registry platform and those new players opening up the market, let's take one more look at my favorite slide. As we move to slide 7, I really look forward to the next 3rd annual Electronic Mortgage Closing Conference, where these numbers will continue to grow. It's MERS' position that eNote adoption will not go backward. Just to quickly recap for you, it's the 3rd year in a row with triple-digit year-over-year growth. Our October final eNote numbers were 66,575 eNotes, a 29% increase month over month. 130 plus companies are live on the MERS registry. Our transacting companies that are on the MERS registry and are actively participating increased 120% this year. We're still receiving MERS registry addendums, and we're getting those guys through the integration pipeline as fast as we can, with a 245% increase year over year. A large part of what MERS does for this industry is to provide educational resources for those eClose working groups. So on these next 3 slides, I'm going to go through a few of those resources for those who are looking for additional information. And I'd make a plea to those who are watching this presentation. If you have some questions about eNotes, the customer group would love to talk to you. Most of you will likely be in Ron Crow's region, and certainly reach out to him or myself or any other member of our team so that we can help you get closer to executing that eClose and eNote closing. Let's take a look at slide 8. This is probably one of my favorite resource slides because it has our website right on it. Our public website is www.mersinc.org, and it has that checklist that I was telling you about. What do I need to do in order to get prepared? What should I start thinking about? We have some FAQs that are incredibly helpful, and I believe we'll have time for live questions today or when this is live. The e-registry integration guide, and certainly pricing can be helpful when you're really trying to get into those finer points. And I think at that point, certainly reach out to MERS. I can't sing the praises of our website enough as far as the tutorials and the websites that we have available for our members. As I quickly skip over to on slide 10 here, the foundational concepts in eNotes 101 is just fantastic. And we have those tutorials that are 12 to 15 minutes long that give you the vernacular and the understanding of what those terms mean, and the legal underpinnings of how MERS e-registry identifies the rights holder of that eNote. I'll quickly go back to slide 9 as I skip through my notes. And I'll share with you the resources that we had for the Fitch ratings. This is the September 14th release for what Fitch was thinking through on eNotes being in those securitized portfolios. We also have the U.S. Mortgages May 20th special report that's listed here. And lastly on this slide is the FHFA article I was referencing from the Office of Inspector General. I hope that this has shed some light for the 2020 year that we've had, and we are certainly excited about walking into the 2021 year that's coming aboard. We really see that the inventory within integration is going to start producing at some larger numbers towards the beginning and middle of 2021, and I know that that's going to include some North Carolina originators. Thank you again for having us here. We're forever grateful for the collaboration with the advisory board, and I very much look forward to hearing from Alex Teep, who's going to be talking about e-vaulting in the next presentation. Thanks, Ozzy.
Hey, that was great, and thanks to everyone for joining today. I'm Alex Teep, Senior Product Manager for eOriginal, and eOriginal is the vault provider for Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae, Quicken, and many others who are actively working with eNotes at scale. And I'm responsible for digital mortgage and e-signature at eOriginal, which includes eNote creation, eClosing, and our MERS e-registry integration through the eVault. And I'm excited to be here virtually for this webinar with our friends at MERS and the folks in North Carolina to help demystify eNotes and e-vaulting for everyone. And Liz and Ron from MERS discussed the incredible trends and adoption that the e-registry is experiencing. So I'll spend some time here to discuss how your organization can jump on the bandwagon and be part of the digitization of the mortgage closing industry. And eNotes are a pivotal aspect of any lender's e-closing strategy. And there are lots of misconceptions and frequent misunderstandings about eNotes. One of which is that using an eNote is complicated. And hopefully you'll agree after this webinar that eNotes can be a part of any lender's e-closing recipe. But first things first, what actually is an eNote? So eNotes are a very specifically formatted document made up of XML and HTML, otherwise known as XHTML. And while this is a standardized format via MISMO from the early 2000s, the technology generally withstands the test of time. An eNote always starts with source data. This is no different from paper notes today. So data coming from an LOS is generally fed to a doc prep engine, and a document with the correct terms and conditions is generated. And when creating an eNote, instead of producing a PDF file that can be printed, a document formatted as XHTML is produced with the terms and conditions set from the lender system of record. And the human-facing output of a SmartDoc eNote is exactly what you're familiar with today when dealing with paper notes. And most eNotes are based on the Fannie Freddie standard instruments and simply have some added language to make clear that the document is being presented is expected to be signed and stored electronically. The people who view eNotes are the same people that view paper notes today. Borrowers, settlement agents, lenders, investors, and their counterparties. The experience for these people is specifically driven to mirror the experience of a paper note while bringing the added benefits of digitized process. So eNotes are displayed along PDF documents in most e-closing solutions and are a seamless part of the digital closing experience. eNotes are easily readable by settlement agents and borrowers and have a familiar format that allows settlement professionals to stick to their typical script while reviewing documents. And the eNote can absolutely be downloaded by anyone who has appropriate authority for review and for record retention, but eNotes are not allowed to be printed out and signed in wet ink. And there's a special section on the eNote that states clearly that the eNote must be signed electronically. If a borrower declines to sign electronically, a paper note can be provided to the borrower for execution. eNotes can capture the borrower's signature in a variety of ways, but by capturing a type font signature, lenders can guarantee that the borrower will sign their middle initial or suffix if required, no more redraws for signature format. And finally, eNotes greatly benefit lenders in the secondary market by providing better access to data, automation of secondary market activity, and transparency to all counterparties because these are data-driven documents. While the end consumer experience for eNotes is completely seamless, there are special requirements for your eClosing provider to be able to execute a smart doc eNote electronically. It's not just your everyday e-sign technology. So eNote signing needs to be handled by a specialized eClosing platform or through integration to eNote specialized software. And there are only a handful of tech platforms that handle this natively. And many e-closing platforms will integrate or outsource this part of the process to a niche provider. Once signed, eNotes are required to be stored in an eVault. An eVault is a secure storage solution that meets the requirements of e-commerce laws and serves as an electronic repository for delivery and storage of eNotes and other mortgage-related files. Most eVaults have a user interface and automation capabilities to register an eNote with the eRegistry, deliver copies of eNotes and other supplemental documents to counterparties, and to perform transfers of rights holder positions to counterparties. And by digitizing the promissory note, lenders can unlock major operational and capital efficiencies by reducing warehouse dwell and greatly shortening the amount of time it takes to deliver loans to investors. One concern we hear frequently in the eVault world is, can I work with the same warehouses, custodians, investors, servicers, even if they use a different vault than I use? And the short answer is yes. The MERS registry acts as an industry translator for vault technology. And that means that if you select one vault provider and your counterparties are all using different vault technology, as long as the vault is an approved provider and has tested connectivity to the MERS registry, all vaults are intended to be completely interoperable. So rest assured that you can use eClosing, eNote technology, and eVaulting from your provider of choice, and you'll still be able to e-deliver and transfer to someone who uses different technology. Now that you have a better idea about what eNotes and eVaults are, when it comes to picking the right eNote and eVault technology for your organization, keep these things in mind. A vendor's experience is critical to your success. You don't want to be a beta tester for technology that supports billions of dollars of business for your company. Ask providers how much volume they've done and which other organizations trust that vendor with their business today. E-mortgage can be technically complicated and is an industry that is constantly making improvement to standards and process. Make sure that a vendor is committed to engaging in MISMO and other groups like the North Carolina eClosing Committee, and that the provider is dedicated to formalized interoperability with other vault technology providers. You should also make sure that the provider you're speaking with can support the full suite of technology supported by MERS today, like secured party, supplemental document e-delivery, power of attorney eNotes, master servicer, sub-servicer. Also make sure that your eNote provider has a library of eNotes that will support the business that you produce today. And it's also pivotal that your provider has the capability to tightly integrate to your existing tech stack. You shouldn't need to change your doc provider or your LOS just to support eClosing. So hopefully you're leaving this session with the understanding that while eNotes and eVaults can be very technical components of your eClosing strategy, there are dedicated providers who specialize in this area and can bring your team into the digital closing world with scale while providing a seamless borrower experience. So I'll hand things over to Ozzy here. Thanks for joining, and I look forward to a safe and healthy in-person conference with the North Carolina eClosing Committee in the near future.
Great job. I'd like to thank Liz and Alex for such an in-depth discussion on e-notes and how they're impacting the flourishing electronic mortgage industry. And at this time, we have several of you who have submitted questions through our chat function, and we're going to turn our attention now to answering some of those questions.